Okay, let's get started. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today with us for our webinar, SNAP Fuels Learning. I'm really excited for what we're going to talk about today and for who we're hearing from. So our presenters today, we're going to hear from No Kid Hungry, that's me, and as well as our lovely partners in San Diego. So the Sweetwater Union School District, San Diego Hunger Coalition, and SBCS. They're going to talk about their partnership to do SNAP outreach and enrollment efforts in schools. So I want to first take us to some housekeeping. And yeah, that's all of us. And then for housekeeping today, so if anyone has any issues, please put them in the chat box. We will take care of them and help you. This webinar is being recorded, so you'll get to watch it in the future if you want to, and we will email it to you along with the slide deck. And of course, you can always find this webinar and others on our website, bestpractices.nokidhungry.org. If you have any questions, please enter those into the Q&A box. We'll get to those after the presentation and we will have time for Q&A today. So want to make sure we hear from you all and answer questions. And then at the end, a survey is going to pop up when we close out of this webinar. So please take that. We really appreciate all the feedback as we work to improve. So let me talk about our agenda today. So we are going to be diving into why is SNAP important for schools. We're going to talk more about the connection between SNAP and schools and SNAP and school meals. And then we're going to hear a lot more about how to do SNAP outreach and enrollment efforts in a school setting. So a little bit, some high level examples, and then we're really going to dive into the bulk of the time today is hearing about the great partnership from our San Diego folks. Then we'll have time for question and answers, and then just a short wrap up at the end. So that's what we'll be covering today. Moving forward, I'm going to dive into what we're talking about. So I'm using an acronym, SNAP, but it stands for the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. And if folks have heard of that before, they may have heard of it called food stamps. So it's known by a number of different names, but SNAP provides monthly grocery benefits on a debit style card to purchase food at places people normally shop, like grocery stores, farmers markets, and online. So that's kind of what the program is. And some things that I like to talk about, especially in the space where we're talking about schools, is that SNAP is the largest child nutrition program in the United States. So roughly half of recipients, almost half of recipients are children themselves. And then 2/3 of SNAP benefits go to families with children. So it's really serving as an important and critical child nutrition program. And then other few things here to highlight for you all is that you're going to hear it called a couple of different things today. So I'm calling it SNAP, that's the name nationwide, but we're hearing from our lovely partners in California and their SNAP is called CalFresh. So if you hear that today, one and the same. Just noting that. And then I feel like what's also really critical and important about this program is just making sure that you know that this is a program that not only supports families, but it supports the larger community as well. So it supports our local economy, retailers, farmers, and we're going to talk more about how it supports schools. So when we're talking about SNAP, I think something that's important to think about is the enrollment gap. And I think it's part of what is motivating the group today to do this work. It's not the only part, but it's just an important grounding, I think, to have. So nationwide, there's an 18% participation gap, which means about 1 in 5 people are missing out on benefits for which they're eligible. And in San Diego County, which we're talking about today, there's actually a 38% enrollment gap. So that's a really critical thing that most people who are doing SNAP outreach and enrollment work are looking to close that gap. And what we know is that for certain families with children, there are higher participation gaps, even than what we see here. So in particular, immigrant and mixed status families, multi-generational families, and elderly head of households with children are some that have those higher participation gaps. So some of the work that you're going to hear about today is focused on those communities. And it's important to know some of the reasoning. I think a big reason why there is an enrollment gap is just literally people don't know about the program or that it's available to them. So a big part of outreach is just getting that information out there, kind of understanding what the program is for and that it actually could be for you. Another big reason is that the application process has a lot of barriers and it can be difficult to go through that. So being able to provide information about what that process looks like, provide support throughout that process can make a big difference. Fear and stigma is a big contributor to why there is a participation gap, especially when we're talking about immigrant and mixed status families. Fear about the program impacting immigration processes is a big part. And a lot of that has been because the program has been weaponized in that way by the Trump administration. Now those things have changed, but that's not necessarily known out there. So that's a big part of trying to close that gap. And then of course, there are inequitable processes and policies and practices that disproportionately impact different groups of people that make it hard to access the program. So those are some of the things that we want to keep in mind when we're doing outreach, when we're doing this type of work. So the next part that I really want to be grounded in for all of us today, and I think we'll hear more about from Amanda, Erica, and Rachel, is how SNAP connects to schools. So I think that's the thing that, honestly, I've been working in SNAP outreach for a long time, but I didn't really know this because oftentimes there are silos between folks that work on the SNAP program and folks that work on school meals or in school settings. It's just how this work sometimes happens, which is important to know in terms of breaking that down. But SNAP is a really critical component of school meal access because kids that live in households receiving SNAP are directly certified for free school meals, which means there's no need to collect meal applications from those kids and families. And directly certified students increases schools' identified student percentage, which is part of that equation for increasing meal access, increasing nutrition department revenue, and increasing free school meals for students. So SNAP is actually a really critical component of that process and something that I think we really want to make sure to keep raising awareness about of how much it helps support the school environment. Kids are healthier and able to focus on learning. It saves staff time. It makes free school meals for all students more possible. And it brings in additional education funding like Title I and E-rate into school settings. So more to know there, definitely follow that link. And yeah, so I also think something about right now is that we want to share why we're doing this right at this moment. So, and I think the folks from San Diego are going to share some of this context too. So we know that the pandemic waivers have made free school meals available to all students throughout the country. And I think people have seen the real benefits of that in terms of just destigmatizing access, just making the process easier for families and schools in certain ways. So many want to see that continue, whether it's through legislation, encouraging the federal government to do that, making it possible within a school district or even a school by using CEP, all of those things are being considered right now by many different people. But boosting SNAP enrollment actually makes free school meals more possible. So I think that's why trying to focus on this work right now is a really critical juncture. Yeah, and then just a component of that I want to make sure I touch on is the connection between SNAP and the Community Eligibility Provision. So with this one, you know, I am no CEP expert. Our folks today who are speaking know it much better than me, and my lovely coworker, Paige, who has a webinar on October 6th about CEP that you all should participate in, really can share more. But I think what's important to share here is that CEP allows for all students to be fed free of charge through the school lunch program and school breakfast program. No collecting meal applications. It really kind of expands access and increases equity. But SNAP is an important part of this because CEP is tied to the identified student percentage. And what we know at a federal level is that schools individually or as a group need to meet the 40% ISP threshold. And then what we know even more is that the higher up you go in that threshold, the more financially viable CEP is. And SNAP enrollment boosting helps with that. So that's really the part that I wanted to have as a takeaway today for this, and kind of underscore some of what you're going to hear later on. So before I pass it off and you get to stop hearing from me, I'm going to talk a little bit about some resources that we have and some just kind of smaller scale actions that are best practices. So the first one is that we have a really great examples of just kind of what the folks in San Diego, which I love, call a SNAP starter kit for schools. So you can add a button to your school webpage, to your district webpage, your nutrition page, where parents and families and caregivers are going for information, because we know schools are an important source of information for families. So they're great examples of schools adding this button to their website to help increase that connection. And often these buttons go to the online application for SNAP in a state. So here's two examples, one from the folks in California, and then the other example is from our school meal to SNAP in Schools toolkit, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. Another great option that folks can take is to just share out about SNAP with caregivers, with families, through kind of the ways that you communicate about SNAP in school communicate about many different things in school settings. So what we really encourage with this is that there's a couple of best practices. All of our information and materials use asset-based language. They're based on message testing and research. And there's a few things we know. Sharing the amount of benefits a family could receive is really helpful. It gives us a picture of what's possible with this program. So you'll see that in the information we have. Making the connection that SNAP not only supports us individually or as families, but really does support the school, everything we were talking about before, and the larger community. And then being really clear that SNAP does not affect the immigration process and is not considered for public charge. So there's lots of different ways to share out, definitely using the methods that you know work best in the school settings where you are is great. And then finally is incorporating SNAP information and enrollment opportunities within school events. Definitely there are great partners to work with on this. There's a whole network of SNAP outreach and enrollment providers throughout the country that I know would love to partner with schools. And we're going to hear more about how that can all work today. And then finally, just wanted to share that we have resources to support this. So I think I saw some things in the chat, wasn't able to fully follow, but we have a new toolkit that's available in 5 different languages with scripts that can help with a blurb or a robocall or a text message, outreach materials and graphics, all that are customizable. So you can use these to do some of that initial starter kit work. So that's kind of the bigger picture, but I really want to give time to hear from our lovely partners today about their SNAP outreach and enrollment partnership and what they did to kind of make this possible. So I'm going to turn it over to Amanda.
Thank you, Chloe. And we just want to give a big shout out to No Kid Hungry and Center for Best Practices. Thank you for always leading in such an inclusive and profound way and bringing us together for this sharing. I'm honored to be sharing about our SNAP outreach and enrollment partnership with my partners here in San Diego. So I have Eric Spann, the Nutrition Service Director at Sweetwater Unified High School District, and Rachel Mornow from SBCS, the Community Engagement Director. So let's dive, and I'm Amanda Mesha from Hunger Coalition. Let's talk about our SNAP in Schools initiative. So you just got to see the awesome starter kit, and maybe you are going to put the button on your website, you're going to start some communications, but you want to start a full initiative. Let's dig in a little bit. What is an initiative for SNAP in Schools? It's a strategic initiative to help schools or districts increase access to that available federal funding by conducting strategic SNAP outreach and enrolling eligible families in SNAP. So let's go even a little bit further and talk about what it looks like. So here's an overview of the initiative projects and goals, how we did it here in San Diego County. So first and foremost, our top goal is always we want to help eligible families access critical food benefits. It's been a rough couple of years, and it's an even rough year with food prices. So eligible families, we want to make sure that they know SNAP/CalFresh is out there and available to them. And then diving a little bit deeper into the goal, as Chloe mentioned, we want to get the ISPs at our target schools and districts above 40%. And the reasoning behind that is we want to get all those benefits of the eligibility of CEP, including but not limited to all students would then qualify for PEBT. And I'm going to pause here and say 40% is the low threshold for joining CEP. In California, you may have heard, on the news, we're doing school meals for all children are eating breakfast and lunch for free. We are able to do that because our state government decided they would cover the gap. So every school district or school who's at 40%, they draw down all those federal funds. And if you're at 40%, you're going to get 64% federal reimbursement. And then the state's going to pony up that additional 36%. And there's going to be 100% reimbursement. So our state government is funding that gap. It's important to know how that works, and also keep your ear on the street, because the federal government right now through CNR, the White House listening session, there's a lot of talk out there about both lowering the threshold for CEP from 40 to 25 and also increasing the federal multiplier. So while California has that state funding, there might be some additional federal funding out there to open this program up to more eligibility. And then with PEBT, we know it's a pandemic program, but again, the federal government is talking about ways to make that program permanent, whether it's over the summer or at other school closures or national disasters. So both of these programs are seen as a great stepping stone to universal free meals, as well as feeding children in times when they're out of school. So we just wanted to share that additional context and information. All right, thank you. Next slide. All right, so how does this program work? Well, it works kind of like any other program. You need a really strong partnership. You need a really good team. And then there's that SNAP promotion. So the toolkit that Chloe shared is excellent. But how are you actually going to target that toolkit? How are you going to make sure you're getting the information to the folks that need it most? That's going to come through data collection and analysis. And then you're going to do targeted SNAP outreach to those eligible families. And then last but not least at all is application assistance. So we recognize that SNAP CalFresh can be a little bit clunky or confusing for families that are applying. So we want to make sure that on the back end of all this outreach is a friendly voice and a friendly face that can help families navigate the application process. All right, so let's look at our team. We have these really fun team members. So first and foremost, folks like Eric are invaluable. The nutrition service director is the role that they have in this program and this initiative. They are the project lead. Because this is a school nutrition program, they're bringing everybody to the table. They're already seen as leaders in their school or district. So it's really the most important person to bring to the table is your nutrition service director. Next up, we have the role of data, which could probably more gently be explained as the folks in your school or district who are in charge of direct certification, and or they might also be in your IT department, but they're going to crunch your ISP. They're going to give you real-time enrollment, and they're going to create those lists of students that you might want to do some targeted outreach to. So very important teammate. Also, principals and student services. We recognize that messaging coming out from a school, especially a trusted voice like a principal or a student services liaison or coordinator, that message is so well received from schools because schools are trusted, they're valuable, parents are really open and receptive to messaging from them. So that's going to be their role, is coordinating the outreach efforts at their school. And then these are two roles in orange we want to dive a little bit deeper into, but right now, the school champion. So that person is going to be the trusted voice for family outreach. And that could be as simple as a phone call asking, have you considered enrolling for SNAP? And then the SNAP application assister, their role is helping those families and assisting them with the actual enrollment process. So let's dig in even a little bit more. But first, we want to talk about what we're saying. We're saying this from a little bit of experience, and you know, we can humbly say this project worked here in San Diego. So we launched a SNAP in Schools partnership with 2 districts in San Diego this year for the very first time, 2 pilot programs. The first district that we're here today is Sweetwater Union High School District, paired with SBCS, our CalFresh Application Assisting Organization, successfully ran this initiative in the 2nd largest district in San Diego County. And, you know, we're big, so it's nothing to sneeze at. It's a big district. And then we also ran a pilot with Mountain Empire Unified School District and San Diego Health. And that is a completely different set of students and district there. It's rural, it's really tiny. So we can say this initiative works in a large, dense urban environment as well as a small rural mountain environment. Families are open and receptive, and this program works. So next slide, please. So all those folks we got together, all the districts, everybody, we needed to start from a base of common understanding. So everyone was offered to take a navigator training. And that was really just a 30-minute webinar where we went through, what is CalFresh? Where can you use it? How much money are you going to get? What are the questions that are asked? Where do I go to fill out an application? Who can help me? We wanted to make sure that everyone, from the principals to the champions to data, whoever wanted to take this training, they could. So starting from the same set of information, we're all going to talk about SNAP/CalFresh. Let's make sure we all have the same basis of understanding. So that was a really important best practice that we wanted to share. All right, I'm really excited for this one. So the SNAP in Schools champion, we want to really explain where this came from. First of all, we learned from our colleagues. So this idea came from Los Angeles Unified, who planted this seed into our minds a couple years ago. So they actually utilized retired principals to help promote programs in their nutrition programs. And so we're like, we should try this out, which is what we did in the SNAP in Schools initiative. So the archetype of this champion is someone who has a real heart for your school community. They could be retired, or they could be somebody who's already working in the district or school, but has extra hours. They're proactive, they're outgoing, they're trusted. And by trusted, we mean they might be already known by the administration and or already known by families. So we were able to use a retired nutrition service director in our Mountain Empire initiative, and that was just beautiful. But above all else, there's someone that loves helping students and families. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rachel, because she's going to dive a little bit into the details at SBCS and Sweetwater. Beautiful story. Rachel.
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. Yeah, and I'll go into introductions. I'll just kind of tag on. I have a few seconds here in this slide, but really the heart, when we were looking into this project, it was really about the heart of the school. And for us, we have hired promotoras on 7 of our different schools. And so that is really the heart. And promotoras, there are trusted community members that are hired liaisons that actually are the bridge between the school, our community, with health professionals, with human and health and services, with other organizations, but they're our liaisons, and they often play the key role within our community to really connect with our families. As Chloe and Amanda were talking about a little bit earlier, it's about that love for the school and really being able to embrace the school and provide them with the resources and the skills that are needed and to be able to connect to resources like SNAP. Our promotores are experts in this field. When we talk about heart, there is no heart, I think, bigger than the promotora / CHW, which are community health workers. And they are really experts in reaching our most vulnerable families, the most disengaged families, and those families that are very disconnected from the schools. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on, but our team was trained by San Diego Hunger Coalition to better understand the entire process of what can be sometimes a little bit, I guess, frustrating for families. It's a little tedious, right? The whole application process. So our promotores were trained to really work out some of those difficulties, but then being able to help them and support them through enrollment and just understanding what SNAP is, what CalFresh is here in California. And also to help overcome some of those rejections, because it's hard to be rejected when you're denied, and promotores are really able to support them through some of those barriers. I just did that one and answered all the questions where they're able to help and support them through all of their questions. But like I talked about, the tedious enrollment process and really just carrying and working with them through their application process.
All right, it must be my turn now. Awesome. How's everybody doing? My name is Eric. I'm the director for nutrition services for Sweetwater Union High School District, and I'll talk a little bit about why we wanted to be involved. I've had a great opportunity working with Amanda, also with Rachel on other initiatives that we had in our district, and I just felt like it was a good opportunity for us to create synergy with 2 individuals who really cared about our community. That's first and foremost. Secondly, the state required it. They required that we go to CEP, which is something that I normally would not do unless we were at a 62.5 ISP, because that increases us up to about 100% reimbursement rate. So with the state deciding that they would provide this awesome program for us, in order to make it really work for us, we needed to maximize the dollars that we were bringing back federally so that we can continue the program on. So with that, we had a couple of sites when we ran our numbers that were short. And it was really nice when we talk about proactivity. Amanda reached out and had already identified a couple of sites. And luckily for us, those 2 sites were Hilltop Middle and Castle Park High, which have great principals. I had great relationships with those principals and site staff. So that made the sell about what we were trying to do a little bit easier. Once our superintendent signed off because he knew where we needed to go, it also helped. And so I'd add in another person you probably want to get involved in your programming is your superintendent, because that's going to be a key that person tends to kind of make it easier for all the other people to say yes. And so that was our first step. But we were able to do it because we saw opportunity to reach more students to offer this program to. Again, it was a new program for us with CEP because we've never done that. And just the help that we got from the promotorists, from the principals, from just our ability to communicate the messaging. We worked really closely with our grants communications department, who helped us to get the messaging out. And just two things I'd like to say that I think are key is, one, you need to be able to target the message to those families. And so what I would suggest first is if you have a good relationship with your IT person that's responsible. So for us, it's called our CalPads person, and that individual is responsible for all our direct cert families. And so by being able to kind of run those numbers, it really was helpful for us to kind of be able to target our efforts. And so that really helped us out. And so why, in this slide here, why SNAP enrollment supports schools? For us, it speeds it up for us in regards to we don't have to request information from families that already have direct cert. So even on the back end, when we were handing out applications, having our direct cert families identified up front helped us to reduce the amount of application work that we had to do. And it helped us to be able to, again, also tie in families who may be living in the same households. We can then give eligibility over to those families. So it helped us with our administrative burden. It also helps us to get families who we may have a hard time finding. Some of our homeless families are a little bit more transitory, so we're not able to connect with them as often or as easily as we would like. And then where we are in San Diego, we have some language barriers. And so it helps us to be able to get that information without necessarily having to kind of talk directly to the families. We can just go ahead and pull that data. The other benefit that we really like too as well is that the families receive the direct benefit. So the families get not only the SNAP card, but they get the PEBT funding that was provided during the pandemic. And then it really also helps to support the Title I dollars at the school sites. And so in California, what's really unique is our funding model is called LCFFF, and it's a local control funding formula. And what that does is it makes sure that the monies that are generated by our free and reduced students actually goes to support those students. So in our planning, we have to target how we're going to support those kids in school, what type of educational programs are going to be for those students. So that's a really good thing on our end. Again, the other part, it provides a tangible benefit to our schools. So when we have declining enrollment, or if you have some challenges in regards to just the making your budget, having that additional funding from our direct cert students helps to provide for staffing. So in this time, what we found that we really could use the money was with counselors. It really helped because, again, we all know that coming out of that pandemic, after 2 years, it was really hard on students, it was hard on teachers. So we were able to also provide counseling services for our students as well as our adults on campus. And also it gives them access to tutoring. And then one point I would say that we probably maybe not think about as much is like all the technology that comes into the school district. This funding helps us to provide that. It helps to kind of give a little bit of extra boost so that we can buy those computers, those iPads, and also provide the the bandwidth that we need to operate on campuses. So again, what I would say first and foremost, and I think Amanda and Rachel hit on it earlier, is you need to have your administrators involved. So if you're interested in it, I suggest, again, first thing first, talk to a supervisor who is over your nutrition services department, develop a relationship with your nutrition service director, but definitely bring on board your superintendent And then I would go after your student services supervisors. Those people have direct conversations with principals in regards to those homeless, foster, and kids who are going to qualify for the direct search. So they're really good allies to have. And then the coordination and collaboration means that by the time you're ready to go, you already have a lot of that behind the scenes work done. And that's what I found that was really helpful for us, because we met quite a few times before we even started the program. And as I mentioned earlier, the training that the promotorias and even the principals who all were going to help support the effort, it helped them to really know what they're talking about. Because the worst thing you want is to be outreaching to someone and you really can't answer any questions that may come up for you. Definitely have the roles defined. For me as a director of nutrition services, I knew I wasn't going to be calling on the parents and at the school site, but making sure on the back end that I was helping coordinate with my IT department. And so that is another key. The person that does your direct cert should be your friend. That person should be communicating with your county, your state information, and you should have a personal relationship with that person, because every month you should be doing a check-in. Even without CEP, you want to make sure that you have as many families on the program as possible. And you can only know that by communicating where your numbers are. And that way I would say, if you haven't met that person, take them some chocolate or take them some coffee or whatever they like, and then introduce yourself and sit down with them and talk about how great this program is. And you'll find that they will really, really help. Because also, again, it gets them outside of just the box of looking at numbers, and then they're able to see the numbers as really what they are, people. And I think that's really helpful. And then give yourself some time. As I was sharing with Amanda earlier, our school year we're a year-round school, so we're kind of never off, it seems like. So everything is pretty condensed in regards to our time. And we just got our application for CEP approved, I want to say Friday. But it took a lot of work because, we're trying to capture that data. How do we match kids? We had the unlucky phenomenon of our famous person retiring right after they gave us the numbers. And then it became, okay, now we got to make new friends. And so give yourself some time. And that way it would help you to be able to make sure that you have time to do the program. And then another key thing is always remember that the data that we're operating with is confidential. And so I would set up any agreements that you're going to have with people in your school, outside support staff, set up MOUs, make sure you emphasize the confidentiality agreements, because we also want to protect the confidentiality of all of our families. So that's one thing I would suggest that you do. And I guess I'll continue. So best practices for us. What was really good, we found out what families were on SNAP previously that may not be on it now. And so we identified them and we were able to segregate them out and do a targeted effort toward those families, because we knew that they had qualified before. And so they were kind of an easy lift for us. And so that approach is something that I would suggest that we do. But again, we send, and I'm thinking that most of your schools have some method of messaging the parents. So for us, it's Infinite Campus. So with Infinite Campus, we can send a text message, we can send an email directly to the parents with this information. And so Rachel will probably tell you, make sure you target it to the sites that you're trying to get and not the whole district, even though you do want the whole district. But so then you don't get a call while you're in the car saying, hey, can you stop that? But it's really good. And that just shows that the messaging, though, it works. So if you can get the message out to people in whatever method that you have at your disposal, use it often. Be nice, understand that sometimes people get inundated with a lot of text messages and emails. So we always apologize ahead of time. if we've delivered this message before, but the reason why we're doing it is super important that everybody gets it. So that's one of the things that really I think works for us is we talk to parents directly. Okay, and you can see where our efforts paid off. So when we first started out, Castle Park was only 37.1% ISP. And then after this targeted effort, they were able to go to 48% ISP. And then Hilltop Middle was 37.2%. And we were able to get them to 41.45%. So it really helped us because we knew how many families we needed to get over the 40%. So I go back to why you should do a little bit of groundwork first, know how many families you need to reach that 40%. And then you can kind of target, again, using the families that may have qualified before, or people who have maybe qualified for free and reduced benefits, but then you can do a targeted approach. So these two schools, once we were able to bring them on board, brought 19 of our 23 sites onto CP. So it was really a good effort. And then what I love about it as well is all those families are now going to get the PBT card and extra added benefits. So I suggest any effort that you can do to help the community out to do so.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I mean, I think what Eric was mentioning as far as like, well, first of all, let me introduce myself again. My name is Rachel Moreno and I'm with SBCS. We're a local agency, a community-based organization that's been in the community for over 50 years. And so we've done many years of work with Eric's vans. I think that trust between our organization and the Chula Vista Elementary School District and Sweetwater Unified School District have been really powerful in our communities. And with the San Diego Hunger Coalition, we've been doing a lot of work, but just recently, in the last 2 years, we've gotten a lot closer, a lot more friendlier. And so being able to expand our resources and dig a little deeper into these families has been a really nice challenge, but also a really nice partnership. SBCS offers a wide array of different services from mental health counseling to children's mental health to transitioning youth programs, domestic violence, after school programming, and homeless services. So we're able to provide that wraparound service for any families depending on what service. And this one in particular, when we asked like why we wanted to get involved, well, when I talked about the promotora model, this is what we do. We provide resources, parent development, and outreach, to our community, seeing over 5,000 community members per year. We're housed on 7 different schools and 2 different community centers. And the promotoras are just the center of the parents and the community, wherever they are in their activities. And if it means helping children to get more food, then we're all in. I talked a little bit earlier about the promotora and the work that they do, but in reality, I mean, it's that targeted person outreach. It's that person-to-person outreach. They're designated, we created these designated phone lines for the community to call into, as well as created emails to support that application process. We talked about the steps earlier on how we got there, but it was that real personal type of support that we provided for our community. The fact that the promotoras are in the school, they know some of the community members, but they're just the experts in being able to reach out to these families. Partnering with other assisting agencies, like Eric mentioned, when he opened up the floodgates to over 300 community members within our school district that weren't focused on this school, was a little bit of a challenge for us, but we knew that those families needed it. So we reached out immediately to other partners, other assisters that were doing this type of work, and really made sure that none of those families weren't counted for and weren't connected with. And so that was a lesson learned, but it was also a beautiful lesson, like Eric said, to know that we had so many other families out there. The shared data experience that we had, also having that contract in place to where the school districts and my staff could talk and have that really in-depth conversation on where we are with this family, how many phone calls have we made, is there another phone number that we can reach this family? And so being able to set that communication up was just ideal. Someone talked about the flyers, if we could share flyers, I think in the chat. I think importantly also is, since if you're an organization or if you're the school district, if the community recognizes you, it's important to have those shared marketing logos on there to know that we're working together. Because if they get a call from somebody outside and says, how'd you get my phone number? And they know that we're working together with the school district. They know that we're working together on CalFresh and that we're, being able to provide them with the resources, because that trust is huge, right? The county eligibility teams working with our county outside of this, the relationships, when you send a CalFresh application to, the world wide web of the county enrollment process, we want to make sure that each step that our families are being followed. So having that connection also outside of this team, but creating another relationship with the county so that they can help you with that eligibility process if there's any bumps in the road was really ideal for us also. Somebody had also asked about the tracking system. Yes, we created a tracking system in-house for this partnership where we were able to provide numbers and let everybody know where we're at in this cause, but also internally, we have a tracking system ourselves that we're verified through the CalFresh system, partner system. So the partner system has where we input all their information and they show us as a partner all the applications that we put in and where they're at in that process. But then internally as an organization, we also created our in-house so we could tell where we're at. If this person needed a follow-up phone call, if we need to, if we're missing a document or something in the process. And so we're able to cross-reference all of that information. We can go, yep. So we talked about the benefits of being able to reach and assist our families. Like we talked again, it was just being in a border town, as Chula Vista is here in a border town, we have many issues with trust. So we wanted to make sure that we took away, I think someone already talked about the stigmas, the government support, especially around public charge. Chloe talked about that. And so promotores are those trusted members in our community. They're either have children in these same schools, they lived in the community for many, many years. They've even graduated, some are alumni from some of the schools that they're actually housed on, but that trust and that knowledge of the community that they're working in really helps to support our families, to get connected and understand that these resources are there from them. Meeting families where they're comfortable and able. So that means if our promotores had to take a lawn chair and go and visit them at home, remember this is during the time of COVID. We're one of the hottest hit communities here for COVID with the highest rates. And so moving through that, we wanted to make sure that our community was safe. We want to make sure our promotores were safe also. But we still needed to get those eligibility, applications in. And so meeting them outside on Zoom, in the office, they came into our community centers, but it was really about where they needed this service. If it meant, them being able to meet at a park, then that's where we needed to meet them also. We did conduct these on paper form and then came back to the office, securing their confidential information in locked boxes. Our promotores are trained on confidentiality and HIPAA requirements. And so bringing that information back and then helping to support them with that registration, as well as providing them with iPads so they can be able to do that information also. One of the areas I just wanted to share when we talk about the trust in our community, we have a particular just one case of the many, but an eligibility of a grandparent, that was at home and didn't know about these services. And when a promotora called to talk to them about them when they were on that list, she had no idea how to do it, lack of communication through technology, lack of speaking English language, paperwork was an issue. And so our promotores went out there, met them, set up a lawn chair on her favorite chair, and sat next to her for a few hours in going through each line by line and creating that trust with this family. This was a grandparent that was disabled, a grandparent of one of our middle schoolers, our high schoolers, and 2 elementary students also that were lacking food within their home. And so we know this was summer. And so they weren't able to go to school and get some of those lunches because of lack of transportation also. So a promotora, by going in the home, identifying that immediate need, filled out the application. The grandparents, the families were very happy, but then also came back with bags of food for the food distribution, as well as enrolled them into other opportunities, which is Mas Fresco, so they can get dollar to dollar for when they're going out and shopping for more additional fruits and vegetables. And Mas Fresco Plus, because of their age, because of the number of people are in there, we were able to fill that gap, like that immediate gap that they needed as they were waiting for the eligibility process. One of the things that the promoters were able to do is also get that application expedited because of the need, because of certain situations that were happening in there. So that's the communication, the training that these promotores have to be able to assist the families that really just take it above level. I think lastly, I mean, these are numbers that really, reflect the work that we did to help the schools get to that level of where they needed to be, but this is nowhere near the call that we had to make to get them there, but also the application and conversations that we had just to let them know, give them the link, or just help them with one or two that we didn't get credit for. These are the applications that we just physically sat and helped and worked and got them into the computer system. But there was hundreds more that our promotores were able to support, and another 300 that Eric sent me on one day when he opened up to the entire district. But this is just, an example. This is just a very small snapshot of the work and the collaboration that we have that really is taking our, families to the next level.
Thank you both. I think, spoiler alert here, the future of this work is we want to continue this work. We knew it was really impactful that collaboration was built, and we really helped serve a lot of beautiful families. So we want to continue on. But I think Chloe has a bigger vision she'd like to share too.
Well, yeah, I think that for us at No Kid Hungry, we really want to keep making that connection between SNAP and school meals and helping more people try this out as a way to make universal free school meals more possible in more places. So I think that that's really what's super exciting about where we're going with this, and trying to learn from great folks like we learned from Amanda, Eric, and Rachel today. So I know we're getting close to the top of the hour, and I want to move us to the question and answer section. There's a few different questions we got, and some are answered in the chat. But the one I really want to highlight, because we got a few different versions of this question, was how that data calculation really happened. So my take on this is, how did you all do that targeted work? And I know everyone kind of spoke about this in a little bit different way, but maybe we can talk about it kind of as a whole. Is there, we know we get the direct cert lists, and we know that we also have, the free and reduced price school meal applications and students that are just qualifying in that way. So I don't know if anyone of you three want to kind of speak to that a little bit more on how that targeting goes.
You want me to attempt this one, Eric? Okay. And jump in if you have, yeah.
Chime in too. Go ahead.
We really looked at, like for an existing school, we'll just take one of the schools. We looked at FRPM eligibility and the numbers of students that were eligible for free and reduced price meals compared to direct certification. And so if we saw that there was a gap in there between students who were eligible for free and reduced price meals, and then there was lower participation in CalFresh or SNAP, we thought that might be a school where there's some real opportunity. And also we looked at what schools do we want to try this initiative at. We tried for an ISP that was between 34 to 39%. So can we get a certain amount of students to push us over 40? Eric?
Yeah, I was going to just also say, because this program was new, we wanted to target, I guess, some sites that we felt we can get over the line a little easier. And so the information, if you're interested in knowing that ISP at your sites, that's why I suggest that you really connect with whoever does your direct cert, because they can give you that information. You can, kind of run a list yourself of how it's either moving up or it's moving down. And then when you look across what sites that you had were free and reduced and what those numbers were, it kind of helps you be able to target a little bit better. And I think that's what made the effort work. outside of whoever that person was who gave the information out to the whole district. I think it was really targeted and really worked. And so it was really helpful for us.
I think also, Amanda, if I can add, there was just so many that marketing also was really key. So not only were we targeting that list, but then the campaigning that was happening when we set up that designated line, people were just calling. So families were just calling that had maybe not qualified before and those kind of things. And so the marketing was really important also.
Thanks everyone for that. I know we had another question that came in around SNAP enrollment gaps and how to find those. So I'm going to drop into the chat the SNAP participation rates from the USDA, but also there's great organizations like San Diego Hunger Coalition that often do this type of enrollment data at a county level or more localized level. And I'll say that No Kid Hungry hopes to share more information on this and provide more child participation rates in the future too. So those were the major questions, but I want to wrap us up because we're getting close to time. First and foremost, we do have some resources I want to make sure everyone has links to. So this will be in the slides that are coming, but it's that toolkit that we talked about, as well as a one-pager on the benefits of SNAP for schools. So a ton about what Eric shared really reflected in there. And it can be a good tool to connect with administrators, superintendents, and others to kind of make that connection. And then we have a web page about SNAP in schools where there's just a lot more information and more to come. And I know, Amanda, if you all want to share a link to your all's great resources here too, I know people would really love that. And I also want to put a plug in for upcoming webinars from No Kid Hungry. So adding after school meals to your back to school plans. And you've gone CEP, now what? Tips and tricks to maximize CEP, which I think is a great continuation of some of the things we were talking about today. So finally, I just really want to thank Amanda, Eric, and Rachel for your time, your expertise, and just sharing about the great work you're doing. And thank you everyone for being here with us today.